the January meeting for the Texas Teams community. So we have a pretty packed agenda today, but I want to remind everyone, we've got about 100 people now that are signed up on the Texas Teams community interest list. So I still am sending out the meeting request to everyone who has ever attended, and that's about 500 people. We've got about 100 on the actual community interest list. You can pull out your smartphone and you can scan this QR code, and it will take you to the interest list on your phone, or you can follow this shortened URL to get to the interest list. If you do not want to be invited to these, or you have a peer that says, hey, that Michael Kennedy guy won't leave me alone, then all you have to do is go out to this and you can ask to be removed. And I will go and check that. Billy's going to teach me how to make it all schmarmy and automated, and but I don't know how to do that yet. So we'll once I understand a little bit more about the technical back end, then it'll be a little bit more automated. But sign up for that if you would, please. Eventually, then we'll be sending out more communications and creating some subcommittees and things, and it would be great to have people's full information for those tasks. So today, our agenda, oops, there we go. All right, it's 3:06, so we're right on time. We'll do a welcome. Then I'm going to go into Start for Teams 2021. Those of you who were here all the way back to February of 2020 will remember the Start for Teams initiative. Well, it's back, it's badder, it's bigger, it's great. Then we're going to visit with Erin Passons, who I had the pleasure of working with she and her team from Texas Health and Human Services. And that's going to be our stories from the field. And when I was out, because my son had to have surgery, and so we've been spending quite a bit of time at the Texas Children's Hospital. And I'm actually coming to you live. I'm in a hospital room next door to our hospital room. So I'm coming to you live from the Texas Children's Hospital. Amazing staff, incredible doctors and nurses, and everyone here is incredible. If you have been fortunate enough to not be here, but if you have a child that's sick, it's a great place to go. I understand that Billy stepped in and stepped up at the last meeting, and by popular demand, we have created a session that is going to be most likely part of every Texas Teams community. Billy and I met yesterday, and we're calling it It's Billy Time, because he's got just a little bit of energy and a little bit of passion, so we couldn't name it something really serious. So we will have It's Billy Time from 4:10 to 4:30. If this slides a little bit, we're going to have open Q&A at the end. You're always welcome to put questions into the question panel. I can't see it because I'm full screen right now, but there are people who will call that out. Keith Townsend and Billy and Justin Rohn are on the line. And so just ask questions away through the panel, or come off mute. Now, I won't be able to see if you raise your hand. So Keith, Billy, everyone, let me know if someone raises their hand and wants to ask a question. So let's jump right in. Every month I put this on here. Welcome to the team. There are more and more Teams users in the state of Texas, and I could not be more excited about really the percentage of use that's happening within a lot of our agencies, and I really look forward to this year helping all of you who are now using Teams just take that usage to the next level. And that's really what the community is going to be about in 2021, is really helping all of our agency friends to take it to the next level. So if we look at where we were now, the numbers back, I don't have the numbers in here for January, but we had about 7,000 users in January. It jumped pretty quickly once COVID hit, and it has continued to increase significantly. And so we're now between the state of Texas agencies and the city of Austin, we're at about 87,000 users of Teams, and that is quite a groundswell. And what we find is that the more people that are using Teams and the more we're sharing how to use Teams with our friends and our coworkers, then just the better it gets. And so we have some great stories from HHS about how they rolled it out. And then we had that really, what I just found a lot of pleasure in that session that we had back in November, talking about adoption strategies. And so we're going to be bringing more of that goodness to y'all. I went ahead and included this in this month's deck because I wanted to, when I send out the notes from this month, then you'll have these in there. This is the adoption guide that we went over in November, and this is latest guidance and materials. You can just click this link, and this is a digital workbook that has videos, links to all kinds of resources that are all about adoption and best practices. And we also created a list of adoption resources, and so this will be in the PDF that I send out to everyone everyone I invite. I still, again, have not gotten it selective enough to just the people that joined the meeting today, because we want everyone, whether you're here or not, to have access to the materials. So are there any questions yet in the chat?
So far,
no, sir. Just a lot of really hilarious comments.
Hey, do I still have a jet? Am I still in the jet?
You are still in the jet.
Still in the jet. Okay. Watch your head on the canopy, Goose. Okay. Want to remind everyone about when we're talking about adoption resources, the Microsoft Store customer success training. We have Sandra on the line with the CST team. We might have Greg on the line as well, Greg Stevens. We are working on putting together an analytics package, and the Texas Department of Transportation is working with us. I don't want to use the word guinea pig, but that might apply. We are going to create BI dashboards for our agency customers for the training groups so that they can see how many people attended which classes, what the rankings were, and all of that. We have that data in spreadsheets, but we're going to give it to you in a nice Power BI dashboard. So if you're not aware of the customer success training program, this is a training program that is included with your relationship with Microsoft. There's no cost. It used to be in person. It is now virtual training that is delivered, and there's a course catalog. It's a huge course catalog of classes, including 3 different classes on accessibility of our platform. We have Teams 100, 200, Power BI, Power Automate that we're going to be talking about a little bit later with Billy. So lots of great content, all available for free. And just the reviews we get back, I have not once heard a negative review on the quality of the training. So take advantage of that. You can reach out to this alias, or feel free to reach out to me, and I will put you in touch with Greg Stevens, who is awesome about getting that booked. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into what we're calling Start for Teams. And let me switch slide deck here. This is a draft, so I want to tell you that now. We're actually in the process of reviewing this internally. Are y'all seeing the Start for Teams slide?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So back in 2020, or when I came back to Microsoft in December of 2019, what I found was that there wasn't a lack of resources and information and web pages and guides and all kinds of things. There was just too much. And so my goal in creating this thing called Start for Teams was to simplify and distill down just the best of the best, the repeatable things that we can do, and really just make it simpler to approach leveraging Teams. And so now this is a total eye chart, but I could either explain this in 15 minutes or I could have you read this slide. And so I'm just going to pause for a couple of minutes. I'm going to have a few sips of my coffee and let y'all just read this. And this is what Start for Teams is. I'm a slow reader, so I'm going to keep letting you read. Okay, I'm going to go into more detail. If you didn't finish reading it yet, I'm going to send these some of these slides out at the end as well. So Start for Teams is all about having a reference approach to adoption, architecture, and then what we're calling the foundations to help you with not just your Teams deployment, then really adopting Teams fully, and then transforming your agency and really creating a more modern work environment by leveraging Teams and Office 365. Now, the reason this says with unified support, I love that we have our education customers and we have our city customers and we have groups from different counties. And so some of you do not have a unified support contract. This is going to be, I built this deck because all of our DCS agencies, with the exception of a couple, have a unified support contract through the DIR and through the DCS program. Unified support, it also is called Premier Support. The specialists who work with our customers used to be called TAMs, Technical Account Managers. They are now called CSAMs, Customer Success Account Managers. We like to change things at Microsoft, keep it confusing. And so that's what unified support is about. And so that's why it calls out unified support, because a lot of you have this unified support contract. And the great thing about the unified support contract is that it is already done. It's already procured. The services and the workshops are defined in the statement of work. And there are funded Microsoft resources that are part of the unified contract and that are deep subject matter experts. And then you don't have to have a unified contract to have a customer success manager. And so you also certainly can work with your customer success manager if you don't have unified, and we can bring in partners that can run some of these workshops we'll be talking about, or we can bring in Teams Engineering. And we have engaged several customers here in the state of Texas with Texas agencies, as well as at the city of Austin. Those are my accounts. We bring in Teams Engineering to help with some specific areas, and they are absolutely fantastic, as Erin I think can attest to. So it's all about helping you coordinate what's available to you. And so I read this book several years ago. It's a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And really the principle behind this is when you figure out what your why is, then the what and the how follow very easily. And this is a thing that Simon calls the golden circle. And so your why could be aligned to a strategic initiative. It could be aligned to something like we need to attract and retain the best talent. It could be for teacher retirement system years ago, their why was increase the return on investment for their fund for the teachers. So the why changes by organization or even department. But when you align to the why, then the what and the how of leveraging the office system to make that why come to life is really important. And so as we approach projects, we want to figure out the why first. And then I'm ProSci certified. And so what that means is that is a change management certification that leverages a methodology called ADKAR. And that isn't necessarily important what all that stands for, but what it means is that we take a very purposeful approach to change management and adoption. And what we find is that a traditional program really focuses on communication and learning and doesn't necessarily involve sponsors, champions, making sure you have executive leadership that is behind and an executive sponsor. It may or may not take into account that there's going to be resistance and how are we going to handle that, or providing structured monitoring and analytics about how we're doing. And then in some organizations, they use a rewards-based system, whether that's certifications or badges or whatever the case might be. So when you employ all of these, we have found that the attempts to drive change, especially foundational change to the way people work together, is more successful. And so the Start for Teams is going to be all about working to successfully drive change. And one of these four key areas. Last year, we were really focused on adoption. And so really helping our agencies to remove the guesswork from how you deploy teams, how you configure teams. We had some fantastic work working through the unified contract with different kinds of workshops, governance workshops, security workshops, deployment workshops. And then, of course, they have all of the support when you're having a problem, or there's something going wrong in your tenant. And so we focused very hard on this last year. Now, some of our agencies have turned off Skype. If you're not aware, Skype is going away this coming summer of 2021. And so we need to make that migration away from Skype. And so we have a very structured way to do that. The first agency that did that was Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. Kudos to them for being the first. The biggest agency that has done that is Texas Health and Human Services, and we're going to talk about that today. But there are also other things once you have it deployed or as part of the deployment that we really want to focus on. And that's where these other three foundations come into play. The communication foundation around how do we create a purpose-based communication strategy for making sure that our employees know what's coming, IT knows what's coming, and we have full alignment. We're going to talk about that today with Erin with HHS. But there is also a training foundation, which is all around what are the tools that we're going to use to train our employees. And so we're going to talk about some of the tools that HHS used. And really, we had some best practices that we did with HHS. So we're going to talk some more about that. And there are some other things that we're going to do as we go into the new year with HHS that are very exciting. And I've got a case reference for you all from another organization, a commercial organization, around really how do you bring together the communication foundation and the training foundation and adoption to really what I call the trifecta of making all this work together. And then lastly is this transformation foundation. So this is really around taking your enterprise to the next level. So things like eliminating paper, integrating and automating business processes, doing things like digital signatures, especially now with all of us working remotely, onboarding new people. How do you do that when they can't come to the office and pick up their laptop and meet their team? And so there's just a lot that can be done around transformation that I'm not talking about big dollars. I'm talking about using the tools that we have and just kind of thinking about the ways we can improve business process. So these are the foundations. These are available to all of you. And then behind each foundation is a whole game plan of 5 phases: discover, envision, validate and define, commit and onboard, and then value. Now, some of these are hyperlinked. This is a draft. These are unified support workshops that are available, like Quick Start for business decision makers. And the reason I call this week 0, so if you're used to Agile, in Agile as a project management methodology, we have a thing called Sprint 0. So that's sort of like when we're preparing, we're creating the backlog and we're getting things ready. Some of this things like network performance assessments, security assessments, analytics workshops to look at where you are with regard to the use of Teams. Some of these need to be done as precursors to really kicking off. So that's what we call that week 0. And then these series of workshops that are done over time. Each of these workshops are very well defined as to who needs to be involved, how long it takes, what is the time commitment, what are you going to get as a deliverable out of that, and then what's the support plan moving forward for each of these. So what I found in visiting with customers about this last year is that there was a lot of surprise. Wow, you're telling me in 6 weeks we can be using this? And my answer to that is an absolute yes. Now, that would be if everything flowed smoothly together and we didn't take a long time to make decisions and we were able to have a project manager or a program manager to help schedule meetings and kind of herd the cats. It can certainly be longer than 6 weeks. I don't think it really could be done in less, but this is, and you don't have to do all of this, but this is a framework. And we have a framework for each of these around communications, case references, a whole methodology around the training and the tools that we can use. A lot of the tools are available with your Microsoft subscription. And then around digital transformation. So let me stop there. This is that is just a preview of what's coming. I hope that's exciting to y'all, that there could be a way that is really defined and is based on best practices and successes from thousands of customers all over the world to help y'all be successful. So I'm going to pause there for a minute and let me flip over here. Any questions about any of that? Oh, wow, we've got a running. So is everything I'm saying being thrown into the chat? Are y'all seeing that?
No.
That's your running transcript, actually. But no, luckily for us, it is not running in the chat, which is
good. Yeah. Oh, I see it. Yeah. It's a transcript at the top. Sorry, I haven't really slept through the night in about 5 weeks. Maybe a couple of nights. It's been a long 5 weeks of hospital visits and surgeries, so I'm not quite 100%. And we'll leave it at that. Yeah, Keith Townsend, love that book. Yeah, Start With Why is fantastic, and apparently he wrote a follow-up book to Start With Why that is also very good. He has some TED Talks that are very, very good as well. Okay,
I use him a lot in my management development schools.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The Infinite Game and Start With Why are probably one of my 2 favorites, along with just about anything, any of his YouTubes. I've tried to grab and use in classes on a regular basis.
That's great, Keith. Yeah, I read that, and it really it was just sort of one of those, like mind blown sort of experiences where I was like, wow. And another great book is the one by the gentleman that started Keller Williams, called The One Thing, and I read that on an airplane, and it was just like, wow, okay, that's super powerful. Actually, reading that is part of what helped me develop Start for Teams, because it was just focus on this one thing, focus on making it simple, make it approachable, make it referenceable, repeatable. Yeah.
Before you move on, Michael, I do want to echo
please.
Joy's sentiments that she put in the chat, which is, you are such a hero for not canceling today, and we appreciate you for hanging in with us. I know it has not been easy last couple weeks or a couple months for you, period, but it does mean a lot that you are here. So thank you for that, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Billy. It is. I mean, I really, I enjoy this community so much. I love working with you all. I feel blessed to be in this job. It's just, I'm not going to say to my boss, I can't believe you pay me to do this, but he's not on the line right now. I can't believe they pay me to do this. And so thanks. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I've only been outside like 4 times in a month. And so I'm looking at a window. I miss my peeps. So that's good. Thank you, Billy. All right, so without further ado, I would like to introduce you guys. She is on the line right now and is video on to Erin Passons with Texas Health and Human Services. She is the team lead for their internal marketing group versus like their communication group. And I got to work with Erin on our initiative around rolling out Teams and the planning that went into that, as well as the decommissioning of Skype. So, Erin, did anything else you want to say and introduce yourself to the group?
Oh, hi, everyone. This is a really fun group, and I've really enjoyed this so far. So thank you so much for inviting me.
All right. I wish I had 2 monitors so that I could see y'all and see the slides at the same time, but I don't. So quickly, I just want to go through taking a look at where we were and where we are. And then Erin and I are going to dig in. As y'all know, the stories from the field, if you've been in these before, it's a conversation. I kind of like to think of it as sort of like a talk show host sort of thing. I don't know that I would, compare myself to Ellen DeGeneres or any of the really funny guys that are on the TV. But my goal is to just have it light and informational and just a resource for y'all. So when we look, this is a trend that is for Texas Health and Human Services. They have about 40,000 people, and give or take, and that's not the exact right number. But over a year, when I started working with them, it was back in January of 2020, and this is pre-COVID. And so they had about 1,128 users of Teams. They Teams applications, that's when you actually use some of the capabilities to surface up applications inside of Teams, which we're going to cover in detail later. And they had about 20,000 people using Skype, and these are regular users. So this is someone that in the last 28 days has used, a rolling 28 days, has used Skype, Teams, or an application inside of Teams. So when we think about that, they started at about 1,100. By March, when COVID hit, they were still really only at about 3,000. They had done some pilots, and we had this whole structured plan that we were going to do over a multi-month period. But we all know how that went come about March 15th. And so the absolutely incredible thing is if we look where they are over the last 3 months. So in that period from March until really about October, we had grown all the way up to about 25,000 Teams users. But they still had, if you look right here, this blue line, this is Skype for Business. So they still had more Skype users than Teams users. This was a beautiful day right here when we crossed over. But then Skype just plummeted, and the use of Teams with applications in it grew. That's right here. Right here it started, and look how it grew. And because of the holidays, things dropped off a little bit. Mm-hmm. But so Erin, why don't we go into kind of just what you did and how you did it and what your goals were, and kind of tell the story. And I have the slides for the sites that you built.
Right. So before I do that, will you go back to a year ago? Okay.
Yeah. Here?
Yeah. So I see the purple line. that was like me, and I was part of sort of the pilot program. Teams is a bit interesting to be part of the pilot program for. You're encouraged to use it, but the whole point of Teams obviously is bringing in people from different business areas that you're working on one project with, right? And some of those people, they weren't part of the pilot program. So it was, the first rule of Teams is don't talk about Teams. And what was so interesting, though, was with COVID, all these Teams just became like really huge, almost like immediately. And so when I was part of the pilot program, I would get people to use Teams and they're like, oh, this is too much. And then all of a sudden it became this really just amazing tool to use for documents. And it's kind of an alternative to SharePoint. But the hard part, the challenge, was getting people on Teams to use it for chatting and other elements that they were used to doing to Skype for business. So we knew that we had a very steep hill to climb. And we also, when we were setting up that communication plan, do you want to bring that? Well, you didn't have the, what's the next screen, Michael?
Sorry, let me get there. Oh, I stopped sharing. Let me click it back over that. I wanted to be able to see y'all, so I stopped sharing. Okay, here we go. It's the resource center.
Gotcha. So when we were going to roll out, when we were going to retire Skype for Business, what we wanted to do was not just make it like it was a replacement for Skype, but that it was a workplace revolution. That not only could you chat on it or call, you could basically develop all your projects, communication, collaboration for these projects. And that's a lot of information. That's a lot of features to talk about. So every time we'd send out like an IT alert or whatnot, we would bring up a new feature. But the Let's Learn, this resource center that we eventually developed, this also became key because it became a platform where not only could they access all the information about it consolidated into one area, but we were also to offer training. The Microsoft training is amazing, but we also had, every business area, every agency has their own way of doing things, right? And so there, were some bad habits that we had that we wanted to, with Teams, to be able to replace. Like, sending 8 megabyte documents to 30 different people in an email and asking, hey, can you look at this? That kind of thing. So we really wanted people to kind of change the way they worked. And the Goodbye Skype, can you go to the next one, Michael?
Yes.
Right, so this was the page that we created on SharePoint. This was linked from our Let's Learn icon that I think Robert's here, the amazing Robert Hinton. He was part of adding the icon onto Microsoft Teams, and it's amazing because it's right there. It's right in everyone's face, and they have access to help whenever they need it. We had the countdown. We had access to training, not just the Microsoft, but also training that our internal marketing team led, and it was targeting those specific bad habits like the emails and whatnot that we were really trying to do away with. And it really gave I would say it was a very relaxed environment. We had about 3 trainings a week, called them lunch and learns, where people just got to ask questions. My teammate who did it, he had an agenda, but it was very loose. It was very casual. It lasted for about 30 minutes. And so afterwards, there was like 30 minutes where they could just ask questions back and forth and really target what they wanted to know. And it really,
that's kind of similar, Erin, to the coffee hours that they held at the Texas Workforce Commission. Chris Bunton and Henry Stewart came on. I think that was back in November, and really highlighted that, where it's exactly what you said. It's a sort of casual approach. It's super informative, but it's not like this structured training and, you got to, it's on your mandatory training list. It's a little more lighthearted, but very informative.
Yeah, and that's how it was. And I think I don't know, I feel like our team, I feel like our HHS staff felt more comfortable, like much more relaxed too. Because and this is the great thing, if you're doing something like that, you don't necessarily have to be an expert if you're the one hosting it. A lot of times my teammate would be like, oh, I don't know, let's look at it. And they'd play around together. And so that was it was really fun. And that was one of the communication, one of the tools that we allowed with our communications was having that lunch and learn. Another one, my favorite, if you can move to the next slide, Michael, please.
Is it this one?
No, it's not that one.
Oh,
Actually,
sorry.
I already talked about that one, I guess. Sorry.
Well, let me go back to this one, and let me just cover a couple things on this, Erin.
Okay.
So we worked with Pamela Hammond. Pamela used to be the Microsoft relationship manager for HHSC, and then they held a whole group, the Modern Desktop Steering Group, and so we met weekly. And so she and John Kelly over at HHS, and this is kind of in some of the early days. And when they found out that we had this free customer success training program through, at the time, we still had the Microsoft stores. And so I was in the domain yesterday and I took a picture. It was a sad thing. The Microsoft store, if you don't know, they are closed. We closed them up permanently, all but 4 of them throughout the world. But all that staff has been retained and they're now all these trainers. But I drove by the store last night and I was like, oh, that's sad. But so we offer all this training, and so what HHSC did was very quickly got on the bandwagon, and we have a lot of trainers, and so we really can scale to a high level, and they are very skilled trainers, and there's this very complete course catalog of almost everything inside of Office 365 is there. And so they started offering trainings, a couple of trainings a week, the team's 100 level training, and then the team's 200 level training, and now they've expanded it. So there's all of these trainings, and they're highlighting the trainings they have scheduled through the stores on their internal training website. That's what all this is, isn't it, Erin?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I just want to highlight that when we use the CST program, we can create a schedule with you. We'll get it all set up. We'll have the trainer. We'll send you the links. And so what our organizations are starting to do is create pages like this where people can sign up for those. Now the capacity is up to, I think, 10,000 people in a training. So it is using live events. So it is more of a person. It is for your agency and your agency only. It's not a that's not a one-to-many like many customers. It's a one to your agency, but it's through live events. So it doesn't quite have the back and forth dialogue like this. But you schedule it, the trainer comes, they do an evaluation afterwards. We work closely with the training department. So it really is nice. Erin, these pre-recorded trainings, where did these come from? Like this click here for beginners and click for intermediate advanced.
I think it came from you.
Okay, I thought it might be. I think we actually recorded some of the trainings. We don't record them because we want them to be a little bit more dynamic because things change in teams all the time and we want it to be fresh. But yes, I think you're right. I think we supplied these recordings, and then they were able to host those on their page.
Yeah,
Was it this?
The great thing with working with Microsoft is you guys have already got everything, so it's just about us kind of pushing it over.
Yeah, but y'all did a great job organizing it and creating these pages. Now, just so everybody knows, the foundation of this system that they use for training is this right here, this learning pathways. I've talked about learning pathways a few times. When I send out the link to the slides, there's a reference to learning pathways and a link to read about it and how to download it and how to pin it into Teams. So it literally is inside of Teams. And so I just want to point out that learning pathways, the site structure, the template, everything is free for download, and it's very easy to install now. It's called a lookbook, I think is what it's called. And there are very clear directions on exactly how to do that. But then what they did is they worked with their SharePoint admins to expand the different pages that they had. And then are you Erin, are you going to talk about the FAQ? Is that what you were talking about being excited about?
Yes.
Yeah, let me get to that page. They really took it to the next level. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, so this is our F8. This is my baby. That's why you hear the pride in my voice. Actually, it's my developers, but anyway. This is our discussion board. One of the suggestions that Michael had brought up was using Yammer for awareness. Currently, as far as HHS goes, only IT uses Yammer. So that wasn't a possibility. Because we really wanted to reach out to everyone. But what I wanted something that looked just like Yammer. I wanted something that would function like Yammer, where people could ask questions, and the questions would be answered by a champion, by a team's champion, and there could be discussion about it. And this has been so useful. We probably get several questions a day. I've reached out, I've answered questions. I know John Kelly, his amazing messaging collaboration team, they're responsible over here for implementing these Microsoft products. They've also helped a tremendous deal. And this has been just a wonderful interactive way for people to learn and to help each other. Yeah, this is my favorite tool, I think, so far that we've had, because you can always go back to it. Yeah.
This ranking here, the popular FAQs, is this literally the ones that more people have viewed or more people have liked, or is there some sort of way that drives this list, or is this ones that y'all picked? How does that get established?
Yeah, it was driven from a survey that I put out about what are your greatest interest with topic with chat, calls, and the different variables of activities that you could do under each one. So based on that, on the vote count, that was how we were able to establish the popular.
Okay.
And we're going to be using this too for OneDrive is slowly coming, and so we're keeping the same message board. We might divvy up the popular Teams facts, popular OneDrive facts too.
Now, one thing that we did not get to implement, but that I'm very excited about, is there is a thing called the Adopt bot. It's a bot, and so the Adopt bot is it looks like you're chatting with someone in Teams, but it's actually a bot, and it comes with what's called a Q&A pair, which means there's the question and then the answer, and it uses AI to. You don't have to ask the question exactly right. It can figure out what you mean by your question, and then it matches your question with a predefined answer with links to articles. The article links can be inside of your intranet. They can be videos or articles that are available on Microsoft site or wherever. And if the answer isn't available, then there's an expert button, so you can actually connect to a group of champions, and so they can literally, when you click that, it can be routed to someone who's available that can answer the question. Because we really find that learning from your peers, learning from other people like this, where you're learning from people in your organization, is one of the most effective ways for people to learn.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Hey, I had one question in the chat that Roderick Cannon asked, which was where is the link to the learning pathways? I think I remember you saying that the information to the link to creating a learning pathways would be in a presentation somewhere, and Roderick, if I'm totally off base on what I'm guessing is your question, you can come off mute and clarify what your question was. But it says, where is the link to the learning pathways?
Yeah. So this slide, which is in the slide deck that I'm going to send out right here, are the 3 links. So the Learning Pathways training site is an information site about learning pathways. And then this is the adoption guide, which teaches you and your communications and groups like Erin works with, of how do you go about sending messages out about learning pathways and get people to use it. And then this last article right here is an article on how do you take learning pathways, which is a SharePoint site, and pin it to the left rail in Teams. Let me show you what that looks like. Let's see here. Where is my Teams? Okay.
I don't know about anybody else, but that's flipping cool. I saw that on the previous slide that you had where that learning pathways was up at the top, I believe. Erin, y'all's is at the top instead of down there where Michael has it.
That's the pole position.
Yeah.
And so this is one that we use internally. This is an internal site for Teams for U.S. government. So this is where I figure out what's available in GCC and what's not. And it's really hard. Our roadmap, I would use a stronger word, but we're recording this. It stinks. And so this helps me to understand what's available in Teams versus not available in Teams. When it's coming, it changes, it slips, it gets, it comes faster. But like this is what I use internally, and it looks just like the great work that Erin and team did around learning pathways. So let me go back to her slide again. This is the slide. This is a slide deck that I'm going to send out. It's these three right here. Okay, sorry about that, Erin. Let me go back to. So if we look here, then as you referenced, Keith, HHS. Whoops, sorry. Let me go. There it is right there. So they put that, this is the right place to put it, is to right at the top. And they called theirs, you can call it whatever you want. And it's really easy to do that. And it's easy to add additional tabs, these additional things right here. Because learning pathways is just this. And then you can pick which tabs you want. And then they put it right there.
And so Erin, just real quick.
Yeah.
You created the other slide, right? And that's a tab within this particular page. Not that. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
This discussion board.
Oh,
right there.
Oh. My developer created the discussion board. I do not have those mad skills.
And that's something that there are discussion board templates in SharePoint, and so what they did is they took that and they customized it, and so but they put some sweat equity into building that to be as feature rich as it is. So that might be something where we could actually have a technical community call where we maybe have one of your developers on, Erin, and share some of the ways that they achieved what they did.
So I got another question in the chat room. Are agency level admin privileges required to pin that? So do you have to be at a certain level within the team environment to be able to pin that at the top?
That's a fantastic question. So let me tell you, I'm going to geek out a little bit here on the Teams admin side. So this is what's called a custom app. And the ability to use custom apps is a feature in the Teams Administrative Center. And it is binary. It is either off or on. So you have to turn that on. However, just because you turn it on doesn't mean that users have the ability to pin custom apps in Teams. That is another capability, and you can make it so that it's on and only admins can add custom apps into Teams. Now, the little ellipse here where you might be able to look and see other apps that are available, if it's added as an app in Teams and it's added in the app store, like each organization has their own app store, as well as there's all the first-party Microsoft apps and third-party apps, but it can be added to the organization's application store, but it's not pinned. So you could click right here and it would pop up that list and you could pick it and it would open it up. That's not the best practice. And so you go the further level, and this is an administrator task where they create a policy, and that is a deployment. I think it's called a deployment policy. And what that basically does is it says, okay, not only upload it and make it available, but also pin it as one of the icons. And there's only 9 spaces. And so this is very important real estate, these different icons right here. And so what we have found, though, if you're really serious about Teams and driving adoption, and not just Teams, but all of Office 365, then you give it the pole position. You put it at the very top and you train, and we're going to talk about this, about the communication that goes into getting people to know it's there, getting people to use it once, and then the really important thing is how do you keep people using it? Because we went from 0 users to 10,000 users in the span of about 2 weeks of Let's Learn. But now how do we keep them going back? And it's not just that site you once visited and now you don't ever use again. So admin functionality. And then what you can do is you can add custom apps into the catalog, and then someone can pin, if you put it in the catalog and it's available in this little box, a user can pin it and put it in their list, but only the admin can pin it for everybody or a group of people, like a pilot group, and tell teams where it's going to rest, like in this case, the very top. Long question to a short answer. I mean, long answer to a short question. Did that answer your question?
If it didn't, I would be surprised. Yeah.
I'm very passionate and excited about apps in Teams, and I've been studying that quite a bit. So I did a little digging on that. So, Erin, let's go back to you.
Okay.
Is there other things that you want to talk about this slide, or the FAQ? Or I've got a whole bunch of questions I want to ask you, leading questions that I kind of know the answer to, but I want to talk about.
Leading questions.
Yeah, so let me flip through these real quick and see if there's anything else that was that I wanted to highlight. Okay, so I love this. This is also a best practice. I included a link right here to these are two videos, they're on YouTube, that reference the same case study. They are both about Ernst & Young. They go by EY now. The case study of how they rolled out 300,000, rolled out Teams to 300,000 users. They did a lot of the exact same things that Erin and HHS did, because I watched this video, the first version of this video, about 9 months ago, and shared a lot of those best practices. But just sharing something and having somebody who's actually going to do it, it can pull it off and really manage it well. That's the beauty that Erin and her team brought. But these videos talk about exactly how they rolled out Teams, and they use communication, and they use the learning pathway site. They also use the Adopt bot, and they used one other thing called the company communicator that we'll talk about. But the best practice that is referenced in those videos is that what they found, and they did a ton of analytics, and this video here, this Jonathan Danowitz interview, this really goes into the specifics about the analytics that they did behind their rollout, because they really were very intentional and did experiments as to what works and what doesn't. And they would watch the dashboards to see, when we do this, does it meet with the success that we want? And what they found was that you could send out communication, or you could put links to things about features like chat rooms or breakout rooms. So if you call it breakout rooms, you'll get some people to look at that just because they've heard about breakout rooms. Maybe they use Zoom in their personal life, or they use, they have a Zoom subscription, but they're like, oh yeah, breakout rooms, we need those. So they'll read about it. But what really gets people excited, and if you send out a link about gallery mode, then they're like, I don't know what gallery mode is. I'm not going to click that. I'm not going to spend any time. But if you send out a link, or you put something on a page that says what you would do with it, how will you become more effective through using this thing? That's what it's about. Use the Planner app in Teams to plan projects, events, and other initiatives. That's a value-based statement, not a feature-based statement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes, and it's also to what we did in our IT alerts was asking them to perform an action, not only describing what the feature was in Teams, it's saying, all right, now that you know about this, try making a call, or try setting up a meeting and using the together mode.
Yeah. And so that's called a CTA, a call to action. And in marketing terms or communication terms, your what they call click-through rate, or when you ask somebody to do something, a call to action, you measure how many people do it. The challenge is, I'll reference stuff specific to HHS. They have people that never read email. And I don't mean like they kind of don't read email very often. I mean, they never, like they literally don't look at their inbox. Because we have analytics that shows inboxes used, and literally there are people that never use their inbox. And so those individuals you are never going to reach. And then there's the individuals that get 200 emails a day, and you're not going to reach them because they're getting emails from their bosses or their customers or their constituents or whatever the case might be, and you're not going to break through the noise. And then there are the customers who will read your email and they're like, oh, that's cool, I'll come back to that, and they never do. And then there's usually about 1.5% that will actually click it and do it. So when you think about, if you're trying to get an organization of 40,000 people to do something and you can only get 1.5% to do what you're asking them to do, that's not going to get you where you want to go. And so we need alternative strategies, and anything we can do to increase that percentage a little bit then creates a little bit of a groundswell where friends tell friends and so on and so on and so on. If you remember that commercial from way back in the 80s, that's where the power comes. And so what we've got to think about is not, okay, I'll just send them more email because they already get enough, but how can we communicate in other ways? And one of the ways you do that is by communicating through Teams about Teams.
Michael.
Eric
Yeah.
Figueroa, he just won the internet today.
Yeah.
What was
I saw
that?
Erin, what are you talking about? Eric's comment?
Clickbait our colleagues. Microsoft adds Together mode to Teams. Here's why it's a big deal.
Yes.
Exactly.
I saw that.
Yeah.
So Michael, Star Donovan asked a question. She's which was I was wondering if the shared calendar app I saw mentioned somewhere as live as of 1/11 has to be added to the catalog. And Star, you may need to jump in and give more detail.
I'm going to actually not just take a breath, but I'm going to stop talking for a few minutes. So go ahead.
You weren't supposed to read that, Michael.
Yeah, sorry. So there is this YouTube video from someone who claims to work in Microsoft in the modern workspace team. Stuart, I'm not sure of his last name. Stuart Ridout. And he had posted this video showing the calendar, the ability to add a calendar in Teams as a tab. But when I try, I can't seem to find that app. So I was wondering, does it need to be added to the catalog, or is there some other, work that needs to be done to make that calendar available as a tab? Because he wasn't doing it the way I'm used to, which is like going into to add a tab and maybe like using the website tab and then pasting a SharePoint calendar in or something like that. Yeah, William, I think it is. I think from what he said in the video, and I posted the link to the YouTube video, I believe it is a channel calendar. I just didn't see it yet. From his video, he didn't make it sound like it was rolling out. He made it sound like it was here, and I didn't know if it was missing because I needed to take some sort of action like a catalog, or if it wasn't available to GCC yet, or if it was in the process of rolling out, or what the thing was there.
Yeah, and so you listed about 4 reasons why you might not have it. The first is it might not be in GCC yet. Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, where Joy works, where Star works, is in a GCC tenant. HHS and TxDOT are in commercial tenants, as an example, so they get things faster. Okay, so Sandra said he's a UK CSM, the person in the video, so he's probably working with a commercial sector customer. Now, so that's one thing, GCC versus commercial sector. They are actually doing a much better job about the length of time between when it releases to commercial and when it releases to GCC. The goal is to have what we call simultaneous release, which means it releases to both. I did read something just the other day that there was something in GCC that wasn't in commercial sector, which made my heart glad. Yeah, as Justin said, it's getting better. So the next thing is sometimes, Star, it's something that has to be enabled by the admin. So there are certain capabilities and features that have to be turned on. And sometimes they don't have time to go in and find everything. And, we barrage you with new features. And so you may have to turn it on. And then once you turn it on, then you have to decide who gets to use it. And you can just say org-wide rule everybody, or then they might, to choose for some reason to only give it to certain groups of people as part of a pilot or something. So lots of reasons.
Right, and I just wasn't sure because aside from that video, I couldn't find a whole lot of information so I just didn't know if there was a way I should be leaning my search in the direction of, like whether enabling it, like you said, in a setting or adding it to the catalog or what.
Yeah. If someone can look just while we're going here at channel calendars and see if we don't figure it out in this, then I'll take an action item.
We don't have to figure it out right now. I was just kind of curious because apparently, yeah, I couldn't find it in some of the usual places.
And the other problem is that some Microsoft people who are very well intentioned will show things because they're cool, but they're only available in our tenant because like my version of Teams is not a released version of Teams. It is a dog food version of Teams, pre-release. And so not only is it commercial sector, but it's pre-release. So it can be, I mean, it could be a year away from being. And so they might show something because it's cool, not really realizing that not everybody can have it. Yeah, ask Billy. I love that. Uh-huh.
I'm still trying to get around the dog food reference.
So we call it eating our own dog food. And what that means is we roll out beta stuff. You can choose whether you want to be on beta or ring 1, ring 2, all these kinds of things. And it's like, how much danger do you like in your life for things not to work? Yeah, that's what that means. Yeah. So we've got about 10 more minutes, Erin, and what I'd love to do is talk a little bit about how you put your communication plan together, and then what did you see with regard to the emails you sent out? I know you sent multiple emails to both IT and your user population that Skype was going away.
First, it was determining the type of users that we have. Being in IT, you get used to being around a bunch of really technical people, but realizing that that is not the case throughout the whole agency. So determining those different types, like a user A, familiar with Teams, knows it's got it good. User B used Teams a little bit, mostly uses Skype. User C, Skype all the way. Teams, what is Teams? So it's determining the different kind of audiences and being able to write something for all audiences in some cases, and then being able to recruit that type A type, the ones that had been using Teams for a while, to reach out to their coworkers, to their peers. I know, Michael, you probably got a lot fancier word for it than I do, but
They're called early adopters. Yeah,
no,
there's an adoption curve that, or
peer something. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
But one of the things too, we grabbed someone that was in a certain area, like say help desk, customer service, and get them very familiar with Teams, so that then when they were in their meetings, they could pass on that knowledge too. It made a huge difference.
In the Ernst & Young video, they call them influencers. A common term is champions. And so, but they really liked the word influencers more, and they referenced that. So Kimberly, I will put the links to the Ernst & Young case study are in the slide deck that I'll send out afterward, but I'll also snag it real quick and drop it in here. Yeah, and so there's been a lot of research that's been done that really shows that the way people learn the best is not from whether it's really great in-person training, that's not as good. On-demand training is kind of really low, especially really poorly done on-demand training that you have to do, because your boss will, fire you if you don't. That's the worst. Really good in-person training is next. Peer-to-peer training, like ask a buddy. That is actually rated as the highest and most effective way to learn. So in organizations, I talked to Elizabeth Kirkwood down at Secretary of State many, many moons ago back in March about a champions group, and they did a great job of creating champions. So have many of the agencies where you have this group of people who lean in early, early adopters, and they become influencers, and they help people in their departments be more effective. Now, HHS has a big challenge because they have 40,000 employees, so they can't use an organization-wide team site where everybody is part of a team. But like Teacher Retirement System created a team site that is organization-wide because they're below, I think it may be a 20,000 limit now or 25,000 limit. It's still too small for them. Mm-hmm. But if you create an org-wide team, then what TRS, they actually have people that that love to do that, and they answer each other's questions. And so that's super effective. Now, because Erin didn't have that capability because they're too big, they had to get super creative with that FAQ channel.
Yes.
But if you can get a group of champions, it's good.
Yeah, Joy made a very good point about once that Skype is away, yeah, we definitely, it became less convenient, and people were kind of forced into using it. But I think what was great about like our early start with the communication plan is most people, when that time came, when we did turn that switch off, they were familiar with the basic components of it.
So this calendar right here, it's not 100% accurate because there's lags. The line here where this starts to take off was actually December 7th, not after December 20th. This is just when it showed up in the report. But on December 7th, they went live with the Learning Pathway site and the FAQ and all of that, and pinned it to Teams. And so part of the communication plan was that this is going to be coming. And then they pinned it to Teams. And then on December 11th, so this was the 7th, and this was the 11th, they turned off Skype. And they turned it off over a weekend. And so when people came in on Monday, the Skype client no longer auto-started, and in its place, Teams auto-started. And right at the very top was the Let's Learn icon.
Yep.
So, Michael, there was a couple of things that I saw here in the chat. I'm going to go up a little bit. And David Butler asks, are Teams meetings going to support green screen backgrounds?
Yeah, so green screen background means that you have a green background behind you, and anything that's green you can replace. That's the way they do it in the movies. We don't. We use AI to basically, you can put the background behind you. You don't have to have a green screen behind you. Early days of with Zoom, you needed a green background in order to put a custom background. Theirs also now uses AI to figure out what's you and then what's your background, and then they replace it. So the answer is no. We use AI with the custom backgrounds.
Okay, cool. The other one here is Kathy just asked, which was, does each agency create their own group of champions, or are they assigned to administrators to create/decide?
Well, so the answer to part one is yes. Each agency needs to have their own champions or influencers. It is not something. So champions are born champions. They're the people that love to share stuff. They're the people that like to teach other people. If you just assign somebody to be a champion and they're not that personality type, then they won't be a great champion. They're the person that at the water cooler, they're telling people how to use Teams. Like, you can't stop them from being a champion. And so Billy, exactly.
Billy. Yeah,
Yep.
Billy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
If you're the poster child for a champion, it is Billy. And
Did
so,
somebody say my name? Or
say my name. And so you need to find those people, and they will self-select. If you give people the option, they will self-select. And so then it's about empowering them, leaning in, giving some extra training up front, and then recognizing that they've got a day job, and that usually a really good champion can take up to about, maybe 10% or more of their day to help others. But when you think about the transformation that can have in an organization, it's worth the investment of time.
I think that's probably one of the biggest fears that a lot of people in the management level have, is that time that it's going to take to be that champion. We're looking at the concept of possibly having moderators in an agency-wide team that has within separate channels, and those moderators need to be those folks who, that is part of that. They need to be Billies,
Yes and no. I'm
Okay.
really against the concept of moderators. It assumes now people are going to do stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
I have some agencies that did not have a naming convention in place, and they didn't put a block words list in place, and some people made some you can't even believe they made a team site with this name. That's we should fire you for that. but they do. And so stupid things will happen. People will say things they shouldn't. That's just life, okay. So it happens on Facebook, it happens on Teams, and it just happens. But in my opinion, one man's opinion, it's a waste of precious resources to create moderators just to sit and watch in case somebody says something stupid. Just let them say something stupid. They'll self-correct. People will correct them. They'll get fired, whatever. Let people help each other. Let people embrace the technology. Let people lean in, and it will just take care of itself if you let it. I think fear sometimes stops us from being as effective with modern work tools as we could be, and especially in the modern era.
That's very true.
Hey, Michael, this is Elizabeth with Secretary of State. I just was going to mention the gentleman that was just speaking. I think he had said that, managers are a little concerned about the resources. If you look at it holistically, though, they're actually making the workforce more improving efficiency by enabling their peers and coworkers and assisting them, training them to become more proficient in using the tool. So that's one way to kind of twist it, if they're, to kind of flip it back to the managers to say you're actually, improving people's skill sets.
Yeah, absolutely, Elizabeth. I agree 100%. And the problem that we had with COVID was when we all went remote, our help desk drowned with just an overload of calls. And one thing that was a deep concern for us when switching over to Teams was, how are we going to support this? With all these, and definitely the tools that we provided has helped mitigate a lot of that. And sorry, Michael, I do want to circle back real quick because Robert had just brought up a great point that we did add the banners to Skype for a couple of weeks, right, Robert, before we took it down. So it was fair warning. It was communication in every outlet, every medium that we could possibly give them to let it know that it's going away. It wasn't like a one day just. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah. And everybody, thank you. I wanted to pop that out there to everybody just to kind of hear what y'all's thought processes were, because we're all trying to kind of learn this, and so your experiences are going to be very helpful for us. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we're playing here in this environment. So because we're using the tool to our advantage here. So thank you for everything.
I'm trying to cut and paste the links to those videos for y'all. I'll drop them into the chat. And so, but let's make the transition. So Erin, I can't thank you enough. Erin is, but during this whole period of working over the last multiple months together on their rollout, which is such a professional, the passion that she brought to this, everybody needs an Erin, and who is just bound and determined to get this right. And we have so many Erins out there in our agency worlds, and you just need to find them who really want to create effective communication. Now, the other thing that I will say is that, okay, I did say there are a lot of Erins out there, but not everybody has an Erin. And so part of the communication foundation and what I'm planning on putting together is actually some examples of communication, as well as things like tools to help y'all with the communication and really create a curated list, as well as curated tools to use, like the Adopt Bot and the company communicator. And so there'll be a whole best practices guidance around this. So Erin, thank you so much for being generous with your time to join the community. And so I want to make sure that we allow enough time now for a man who needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. It's Billy time. So Billy Stevenson, if you would, I am going to stop sharing, and if you'll take control and do your thing.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you again, Michael, for letting me hang out with you guys today. Enjoy. It is truly one of my favorite things to do. You guys pegged me when you said somebody who likes to share. I am definitely that person. I am going to do my best to just demonstrate some of the things that I've seen and implemented at UT Southwestern as well. I was responsible for assisting in pushing Microsoft Teams and Office 365 as the primary method of work when we were moving for our remote work time during offloading for campus. I think we had 9 days where all of our rooms are Skype rooms, all of our conference rooms are Skype conference rooms, and then all of a sudden, everybody had to kind of use Teams. So the thing I'm going to show you today, I'm going to kind of pick up where we left off at the last session, where we talked about forms and we talked about our Power Platform, which is just hands down the best application you can use for your business. I think available. And I'm going to show you and go a little bit further based on the questions that you had the last time because we really didn't have the time. I will tell you that the applications we're going to use today are Microsoft Forms. The way I explain it to people in our very antiquated as far as technology is concerned, our antiquated culture of technology, you could say at our institution, is that it's kind of like SurveyMonkey and Red Cap, but on steroids and with magic. That's Microsoft Forms. It's really amazing. It's amazing the things you can do and how you can use it. And if you haven't, I highly suggest you go experiment with that. The second application we're going to use is Power Automate. And it is a low code, no code option to really automate business processes. If you can make a process map, then you can use Power Automate. Microsoft has made it that simple. We're also going to use Microsoft Excel, which I'm assuming requires no introduction. And then, of course, Microsoft Outlook. Those are the 4 applications that you need to make this example work today. I am pretty confident that regardless of what tenant you happen to be on, you should be able to make this work. The tools that I'm going to show you today, we used for all of our COVID-19 screening processes internally for our employees to self-identify when they were experiencing symptoms, and for our occupational health teams to get back with them and check up on them. We moved our entire float nurse section in the hospital to using Microsoft Teams to track and follow up with customers using some of this technology I'm going to show you today. But aside from like those heavy things like that and federal leave, et cetera, we also, on the flip side, use it for smaller things like setting up invitations to trainings, selecting when you want to get a certain type of information and getting those links directly to you. So there's a ton of applications. So I encourage you today to see what I use, the example I'm going to give you, but how you can use it for you. And then finally, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat, and we'll get going. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to talk about the scenario. The scenario we're going to use today is that I would like to create a Microsoft Teams page for my team. And what I want is I want to be able to send an email for people who want a certain type of training. And I want to be able to send them an email or send them the form link. I want them to be able to go to this form and give me the information. And I want it to send a bounce back email to them with the date for the training. And then I also want to have an area where we can get all of that listed in the Microsoft Teams space. And then I want people to be able to go into that list and review it and mark it up and mark that they've reached out to people if they have any further questions. Now, that's the scenario I'm going to use. It also works really well for if you have an event that you're hosting. It also works really well if you want people to self-identify for something and you want to be able to send them a bounce back email. It also works really well if you just want to keep track of something. Maybe you have somebody who is your manager or on your project team, and they're maybe pretty lo-fi, low-tech, and they can, the thing they can do the most is I just need an Excel spreadsheet. And you want to make it really easy for them to track information, even though on the back end, it's doing all of these spinning wheels. So that's what we're going to do today. And so I've chosen one of my test team spaces to do this. I'm going to use this training channel in my virtual conference room team space, which could be literally any team space, to house that Excel spreadsheet. So now that we've gotten the scenario down, let's do it. The first thing we want to do is we want to go into our applications and open Microsoft Forms, which again is great for quizzes, surveys, and polls. And when I want to create a form, I can just drop down here and create a new form. You've seen me do this before. We're going to do it really quickly again. So this is training sign up. The next page mark. Let's have a blast. So what we love really quickly about this is I can add a photo to the top of this form. I can search Bing or upload a document, or upload a photo myself. That's one of the things we love. And then also Microsoft offers you some amazing themes. So you can transform the look of your form immediately and add a very professional touch. If you have something you'd like to add yourself, at the very bottom, there's a plus sign. I can add my own photo and do hex codes if I have very specific brand specifications as we do at our institution. The next thing is, once I've used a couple of words, Forms is going to guess what I want to do. And so you saw that lightning bolt. When I clicked that, Form said, you're probably going to want people's first name, I do, their last name, definitely, maybe their organization, and then their email address, sure. I've gotten these this quick and clicked Add Select, and bam. Here is my form already filled out, which is just another reason we love these tools. Now, if I wanted to do it manually, I could. I would simply click the Add New button and choose what kind of question I'd like to ask. For all of our marketers and customer service managers out there, Net Promoter is in here. It's already built. And it also has a file upload. So if you want to collect a form that's signed, or proof of purchase, or a receipt, or a photo, video, PowerPoint, you can do that by choosing file upload, which is another benefit of Forms, but that's outside of the scope of our case study today. So guess what I have? I've got my form. It was that fast. How magical was that, right? So once I've gotten my form, the way I would share my form is by going to share and copying that link. Boom. Anybody who clicks that link in my organization will be able to fill it out. But sometimes you have other organizations. In my particular tenant, I can choose anyone. I don't know if that's the same thing for your tenant, but that's what I'm going to use today, because I'm actually going to have a couple of you do this as an example in just one moment. So, did my form. Now that I've done my form, I probably want to write the email. I need to write the email that I want to come when somebody fills out this form. So they fill out the form. What's the process, right? The business process is they fill out the form. They get a bounce back email with a calendar invitation. And it writes all that information down in my Excel spreadsheet. Those are the steps. So step 1, create the form, done. Step 2, let's go ahead and write that email. Now, what you would do is you can go to your email and you can go click new appointment, and you'll get a little box that looks like this. And you can write the appointment out as the calendar invitation. I've kind of already done that. And I think it's right here. Oh, we're going to have a Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. So when you fill out this form, here is the email you will receive. It will be called, the calendar invitation attachment will be called Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. It'll say, hey, y'all, please take some time to send Michael Kennedy kudos. I hyperlinked this email. Thank you. And there's my signature. So this is what I want to attach to that email. So when somebody fills out this form, surprise, it isn't training, it's celebrating Michael Kennedy, then that's what I want to attach. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Fill out the form, get an email. The email will have this attachment in it. And then it will also write down the names of people who did it so I can follow up with them later. All righty? So now we've gotten this, the way, once you've written out your calendar invitation, you don't want to simply click save and close. You want to go to file and you want to save as, and you want to save it as a file on your computer. Now, there is a way for you to just get straight into saving it into OneDrive, which is essentially what we're going to do. It's right there, but I don't know how your computer works, so we're going to do it the long way just in case. I click desktop and I save it as an iCalendar format. So I've already done that, but I wanted to show you, you know, when you go to the cooking store, the cooking show, and they're showing you how you cook it, but it's already been cooked. So I wanted to show you that. So there is that. Now, I will tell you, there's one tool I didn't tell you about. And that tool is OneDrive. The easiest way to get your calendar invitation into Power Automate is to use a Microsoft tool. And I will tell you OneDrive is going to be that tool. So that's where we're going to go. So I've already saved it, but I'm going to delete it just so you can see me save it again and see the process. So once I go to my OneDrive, I'm going to click Upload. And OneDrive is like your personal, I mean, you have lesser cloud storages like Dropbox or Box. Get those out of here. OneDrive is awesome. It's already integrated with your system, with your Azure, with your directory. So it's the best one to use. So I'm going to upload a file. I'm going to go to my desktop here, and I'm going to find Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day and upload that email to my OneDrive. It's done. It's there. That's all you need to do. All right. So we've created our form, written our email, got our OneDrive. Our last step before we get to our magical automation is we need to create the Excel spreadsheet that we want it to fill out. So what I will tell you is in the channels, the way that I do this process to make it easy, wherever I want to keep it, whether it's if it's in a Teams page, you could also use a SharePoint page if you want to, but I find the collaboration, the natural hub nature of Teams is just the best place to put it. I'm going to actually create this Excel spreadsheet right here. And I can start the Excel spreadsheet. Let's shorten it. Celebrate MKB. Boom. Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. Cool. Create. I'm going to create that Excel spreadsheet. When I do this in the cloud, I love using things in the cloud because it just automatically saves every single keystroke I use. But sometimes I need some help in opening it in the desktop application. It just has a little bit more for me to use here. So I'm going to open it in Excel on my actual board. My actual computer, and I'm going to insert a table. This is the key. When you're writing from a form and you want it to write the information, the actual steps we're going to use is to write to a table. So you must put a table in to your Excel spreadsheet. There is a really slick way where I can start and kind of connect it with forms automatically. But again, I want to show you the basic level skills that you'll need to do this and replicate this. So I'm going to insert my table. And don't worry about doing all the extra because you can click right here and drag it on over. And now I'm going to name these columns. So what information did I ask earlier? I asked for first name. I'm going to name them so I know what's coming. Last name, I think is one that I asked. I asked for organization and email address. So that's the information I want to keep. And so I'll leave this right here. Usually I'll make this a little bit prettier, but we're running a little low on time. So boom, that's done. Because this is a cloud document, you'll see it's saving, and it's going to automatically save every keystroke. I can also push a manual save by clicking the save button, but I don't have to. So now that I've done that, I can literally close this. Because I started the document in Teams, that's where it actually lives. So that's one of the things we love about Microsoft Teams. As you can see, it uploaded it right there. So let's recap before we do our last step. I created my forms, asked some questions. I wanted to send a bounce back email, so I got that attachment ready. I put it in OneDrive and I built the Excel spreadsheet. Now I have all the components. Now that the components are built, all I need to do is tell Power Automate what I want to do with what I already built. And instead of having somebody who has to manually do this all the time and waste their time, Microsoft Power Automate, which doesn't sleep nor slumber, will also be able to do this for you while you sleep and or slumber at your desk or anywhere else, frankly. So now that we've done that, the last step is to go to Power Automate. One of my favorite tools. It is literally the best thing ever. By the way, if you wanted to dive into using Power Automate for your organization, just going to the home page isn't a great way to do that. It has so many pre-built automations that you can just kind of plug and play and learn a lot about. So I encourage you to go explore this at your earliest convenience. But what I want to do is create a flow really quickly. So I'm going to click Create. It is an automated cloud flow, which means it's triggered by a designated event. What do I mean when I say that? Very simply, when you fill this form, that's the trigger, and subsequent actions will happen. That simple. So I'm going to start there. And what is our trigger? When a new response is submitted. Remember, we discussed that. So I'm going to click here and name it CMKD. There we go. So that's my flow. And when a new response is submitted to a form, that's when I want this flow to kick off. So I'm going to create the flow. So the first thing I need to do is find the form that's going to kick it off, because I could have a ton, which I do. So I need to go find that the name of that particular form that I created. So I'm going to scroll down. I have a whole bunch of these, y'all. It's a ton. We use it all of the time. Training sign up. There it is. Now, this is key. Write this down. What I love about Power Automate is not only will it run your process, but it remembers the information that is in each one of those spots if you tell it to. What do I mean by that? I can make something called dynamic content, where it can read the responses and then plug it in certain places. So if I ask for a first name, Power Automate will read what it said in first name and type it wherever I tell it to. But in order to do that, I have to tell it to read it, because it's not going to do anything you don't ask it to do, just for your protection. So when I go to Microsoft Forms for choosing an action, I can get response details. That's so important. So not only is it triggered when the response is submitted, but the first thing I need you to do, if you don't mind, Power Automate, is can you read that form and pull that information so we can use it? And I'm just like, of course you can. So training sign up, what I want to do, the unique identifier, there's only one option, which is response ID. Anytime you're doing a flow with form, you want to have these first two. If you don't have two forms right next to each other, you're probably doing something wrong. So always make sure you do that. The next step we want to do is, I had an attachment that I wanted to get, right? So remember, you want to tell Power Automate to get the information and read the information. So remember, I put that in OneDrive. Well, OneDrive and OneDrive and Power Automate are in the same Microsoft family. So I'm going to tell it, hey, I put a document in OneDrive. I want you to get the document information and the actual content of the document. And this is how I'm going to do it. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to get the file metadata. So get all the data about the file. And it's going to say, what file? You have a whole bunch of stuff in your OneDrive. So I'm going to click that little file folder and I'm going to go find it. Let's see, where is it? What was it called? Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. Wasn't that what it was called, y'all? I think that's what the name of it was. Let's see if we can get down to Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. All righty, there it is, Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. Okay, so now that we've done that, I also need to not just get the name of the document, but what's in that file. What's actually in there? It's a ICS, it's a calendar invitation. So I gotta get that as well. So what do I wanna do? I wanna get the file content. And it's going to ask me again, is this a different file content? And sometimes you'll want to pull a list from one and the content from other. And there are a ton of different ways to do what I'm showing you, very easy ways to use it, but I want to make sure you see this particular instance. Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. So get that file, get that name. All right, now that I've got that information, the next thing I want to do is send an email out. And if you have Outlook, all you have to do is literally type in Outlook. And here are all the actions you can do with Outlook. There's a ton of things you can make it do at the drop of a hat. It can create events, it can delete emails, it can add emails, it can forward emails, it can send emails with little options with buttons. But I just want to do a regular old send an email. Boom. Now remember earlier we told Power Automate, can you please read? I just need you to read the form information so I can use it later. This is where we're going to use it, okay? So the to field, it's not going to send an email to the same person each time. It depends on who filled out the form. Well, luckily, because Power Automate read the information, I can click Add Dynamic Content and scroll through what it read. So it's an email address field. I want you to read the response details of that form and insert whatever the person put as their email address in the to field. So if my email is billy.stevenson@utsw.edu and I put that in the document, it's going to publish it here. Very simple. Now, the reason I did this is because I have external users here, which is really important. Celebrate Michael Kennedy. So now all I'm doing, this is the easiest part, it's writing an email, y'all. I'm just going to write what I want the actual email to say. Hey, y'all. Let's celebrate our, what are we gonna call him, y'all? Microsoft Guru. I should have said it's Michael Kennedy time. That's what I should have said, but now it's too late. Alrighty, so now that I've written that email, and you have lots of things you can do here, hyperlink, write in actual code, but what I wanna do is show advanced options and choose my attachment. I need to pick my attachment name. Luckily for me, I had it read the metadata, so all I have to do is click name. And I need to get the attachment content. But luckily for me, I already told Power Automate to read the file content. Boom. email written, and done. Done and done. So the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to save, because you always want to make sure you save things before you lose things, is add that final step. And that is, don't forget to write all this stuff down in that Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to go to my Excel list of actions. And what I want to do, remember we made a table, right? So I want to add a row in that table for every single person who fills out this form. So I'm going to add a row. And it's going to ask me a lot of great information, like where is this so-called Excel spreadsheet? But luckily for me, because I put it in the Microsoft environment, everything is connected. So I can choose where it's located from here. So we know we put it in Billy's virtual conference room. That's the name of the team. So I went and found that Teams. And the second thing I'm going to do is, where is the Excel spreadsheet? Well, it's in the documents folder, because that's where I started it from. And now it's going to say, okay, we're going to pull up all the options in that document folder, and you tell me where it is. Well, I know I was in the training channel. So here's a list of all my channels. Okay, cool, training. And then, oh, there's the name of the Excel spreadsheet. Now, this is my favorite part. It's going to go in, and it's going to ask me on this spreadsheet, where's the table? It's only one table. So once I've done that, it reads those columns. So this, remember that game you used to play with a kid, where you matching game with the matching cards? That's all you're going to do here. If I want to get the first name information, well, let's see. Did I read that? Oh, there we go. Get response details. So first name from the form goes into the first name column. And last name from the form goes into last name column. And organization from the form goes into organization column. And email address from the form goes into email address column. And so now it's going to read it for me and write it in there. I just got so excited, because every time I see it work, I'm just amazed that I did zero coding. Like no coding, and I literally just wrote a whole automated process in 20 minutes. That's gonna do it forever, as long as this form works. So I'm gonna save everything. It's saving. And then just a pro tip, always click your flow checker at the top right-hand corner. It'll let you know if there's any errors or warnings you should be aware of. Now that we've done it, we are ready for prime time. So I'm gonna copy this link. I am going to come back to our meeting where I have put most of y'all to sleep. And I am going to put this link in the chat, and I'm going to let you go to town. A couple of y'all fill that out.
Oh, buddy. Here we go.
Boom. And so you can go in and fill it out, and I will go back and share, and you'll get an actual email from me with the actual ICS. You'll be able to download that to your calendar. So it's a real life calendar invitation for you to message Michael Kennedy tomorrow from 1 to 2. I'll be excited about that. And then in a second, we'll come back and we'll take a look at some of the actual processes on the back end. So now I'm reading through some of our forms, and I see things like, I don't see a lightning bolt. Depending on what you name your form, or depending on what level of form you're using, it may or may not be there at the very beginning, or it may start once you select and pick the first question, then it starts to suggest things to fill after. But it's triggered based off of the name of what you're naming it, and it tries to get an idea of what you want to use.
Oh, I just got an email from Billy.
Did you just get an email from me?
I just got an email from you.
If you feel like you want to share it, please do.
Oh,
feel free to share your screen and show America what it looks like. Also, I'm glad that you got an email. That means it's working. Don't get excited with me. Get excited with Microsoft for making the single best tools that your business has ever seen. And so leveraging any portion of what you just saw or the total piece can really transform your business, and it can really save you some time and some energy, and make you look really professional to your customers. Like, it's one thing for it to be behind because you have to manually respond to emails, but having something curated, putting in some headings, using some HTML, adding that kind of interaction, that is what our customers at every level, internal or external, are used to seeing in their lives. And Microsoft is providing you tools that you're already paying for to elevate the level of customer service and appearance of your agency. And that is why I get so excited. Everybody's like, oh, you're always so excited. How can you not be excited? This is like a free gift. Like if you knew how much small and medium businesses are paying for not only this technology elsewhere, but somebody to write the code, and you got it, it's just sitting. It's like having a really nice house that you bought and you're outside, or you're going to all these shops trying to buy furniture, and there's brand new furniture in the plastic in the attic. So what I want to do is I want to suggest you to explore your Microsoft house and see what came with it. You'd be surprised on what you already own. And this is just one example of that. So thank you so much for your time. I hope that you enjoyed something. As a matter of fact, let's do this really quickly. If you learned anything that you can use later, please just raise your hand so we can see. We can do a little eye chart. You're a Microsoft Teams hand. Oh my gosh, it should be right there at the top of your screen. Oh, there we go. Okay, so 3 people. I'm glad. If one person got assisted, then that is more than enough. So do we have any final questions? I know we're a little bit over time and I apologize, but if you have anything, feel free to type it in the chat and I can respond. Also, you now have my email address if you do that form, so feel free to email me personally as well.
Oh, hey, your email box is about to blow up, dude.
Luckily, we moved to cloud email last year. We migrated everyone from our on-campus servers to the cloud servers, so I have plenty of space. Blow it up.
Hey, Billy,
Nice.
we had a previous administrator set up lots of things using the process you demonstrated, and then he's left. And so a lot of those hooks now are broken. Do you have a way or a best practice on avoiding that or repairing that?
Absolutely. So what I always do with my forms, and I'll share really quickly my screen again to show you a few things. I know Michael's probably ready to land this plane, and I apologize for going over on my time. Please forgive me. I won't do it again.
No, that's great, Billy.
In your
I didn't give you enough
flows,
time.
I think I saved it. In your flows, if I go to my flow here, one of the things that I always do is I share my flows. This is really great because you can share it with people, but also I can add additional owners. So if I fall off as an owner, there's always a backup that has the ability to use this flow. So that's really powerful. Number 2, your Microsoft admin for your agency or institution has a little bit additional assistance in some cases. Like I know in our tenant, they can, even if somebody's left, they can have access to their OneDrive and some of those other things after they left for an abbreviated period of time, just to ensure they have everything that they need from their organization. So I probably would wager to bet that your admin can, whoever is administering your tenant, can do the same. But also, again, when it comes to your flows and other things, you want to share them. One thing that I found that can be a little bit problematic is when I make a group form. So if I create the form in a Microsoft Teams, it no longer belongs to my tenant, but I'm using Power Automate from my Billy Stevenson's account. But that form is owned by the tenant of that Teams. And so it can be kind of problematic to connect it. So I'm not going to suggest that you share the forms as a group, but you can always create a form and share it. I'll show you. When you have the form sharing, if you share Collaborate, this starts to share the ownership of this form. But if you click share as a template, it takes the actual questions that are here and any automation that you or branching that you build into it, and it shares it with this link. So if I copy this link, and this is the second link, and I put it in the Teams chat, you can take that link and click it, and it will make this form for you. All the questions, all the branching I have, and you can edit it as you like. So those are the 2 things I suggest to do preemptively to make sure that you don't run into a wall when, somebody leaves their institution and starts working for Microsoft and like all the stuff breaks. Like, how does that happen? So something to consider.
Yeah, and there's a whole best practices. It's called the Center of Excellence. There's a white paper on it. It's pretty long. It's about 120 pages, but it goes through all of the best practices around Power Automate's Power Platform. And when you create solutions and you enable what can be referred to as citizen developers, then how do you make sure that you put as IT governance administration put the guardrails on so that when they're operating, that they are operating within an environment that can be supported in the long term, as you just referenced, so that someone leaves and it doesn't break things. So there's some great guidance, and we're actually going to be doing, as part of the Digital Transformation Foundation, we're going to be helping people understand what are the best practices to do that. So we're a little bit over. That was my fault for not making enough time for Billy time. I just can't thank you both, Billy and Erin, enough for joining our call today. Thank you to the whole community. I love this community. It's so much fun, and it's just going to be even better. Wow, look at all those people. Man, celebrate Michael Kennedy Day. That's a popular day. I like that. I'm going to have to send that form I'm going to have to send this form to my wife. Say, hey, honey, look at all these people. This is Celebrate Michael Kennedy Day.
This is going to be great. So again, just wanted to make sure you saw that it was working all the way through.
Yeah, look at that. That's awesome. This was great. We're going to do more of this every month. So share this with your friends. If we get too many and we go past the 300, we're now going to be having the ability to have 1,000-person Teams meetings, and it's going to expand to even larger. So more to come. Lots of things coming out. Thanks again for being here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now and make that the official end.